All right, morning, happy Sabbath, everybody. It's third Sabbath of 2019, not the third day, but third Sabbath. Again, we just started a new year, and we're already embarking upon our third weekend, the long weekend, Martin Luther King Jr.'s weekend. And some of you have some really great plans for this weekend, but before you head into the weekend, I just want to remind all of us, if you have started a new habit this year, in the beginning of the year, and if you have been faithful till now, something called a habit has been formed in your life. Because it often takes about 21 days for a new habit to really sink in and become a part of a lifestyle. I want to actually give a shout out to all of you who said, in 2019, I want to start coming to church. I want to be more active in my faith with God. And if you made it to the third Sabbath, praise the Lord. Hallelujah. Biggest shout out to those who have started coming to church in 2019. And this is a word of encouragement to all of you who have messed up, have fallen, and your resolution lasted full 24 hours. God's love still prevails. His grace is still sufficient. It's never too late to start again, right? And I want you to just keep coming back to that resolution, the resolve to really experience everyday spirituality. That's our motto. That's our theme for our entire year. And we've started a brand new series called The Life You've Always Wanted. And we're on part 3. But before we get to that, let me ask you this question. What time is it? It's morphin' time, right? Did you guys already forget this, right? At the beginning of this year, what do we say? More than anything else, this year is going to be a year of change, reformation, and deep, abiding spirituality that happens in our daily lives. So what time is it? It's morphin' time. It's morphin' time. It's time for us to morph and become the person that God wanted us to be when He made us and created us. Okay? If anger and anxiety was your issue in 2019, it will no longer be an issue in 2019. Why? Because every day you're presenting all of your anger, anxiety at the foot of Jesus Christ. And He's going to replace your anger with His peace and your anxiety with His overwhelming grace. Amen? This has to be the story of our lives. If you have been insomniac in 2018, in 2019, you're going to experience the gift of sleep that God offers. Because in Proverbs, we read that sleep, a deep, good night's sleep, is a gift from God. And if you're not enjoying that kind of sleep, I truly pray that you will enjoy that this year. There are so many things that I want to tap into and talk about, but we're going to get ahead to our message for this morning because this is a message that has really spoken to my soul as I pursued everyday spirituality this year. Okay? One of the new habits that has become permanent in my life right now is reading a psalm every day and reading that one psalm 7 times that day. I think I'm going to stick with this habit for the rest of my life because reading a psalm every single morning to start the day and spacing out each day so that I can pause and read that psalm again 7 times that day has remarkably transformed how my day went. Oh my goodness. All the psalmists, all David's cries and his tears and his vents and his, deep fervent prayers to God. If you read a psalm and you read that psalm for 7 times that day, it's going to do something in you. It's going to give you hope amidst anguish. It's going to give you dream and a vision of God that you've never had before. It's going to give you the history of Israel and the history of your life. It's going to completely, marvelously transform your life. If you do anything this year, if you want to form a new habit that's going to change your life, make it reading at least one psalm per day. It doesn't have to be any other part of the Bible. I would definitely encourage you to read one psalm per day. Right now, currently we're running 30 days in the Psalms, and every single day there is a psalm that is designated and allotted for that day. And if you want to follow along, you're more than welcome to. Okay? All right, with that being said, we're going to go back to our message for this morning. We're going to begin with Luke 9:23. Can we all read this together? Ready? 시작. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me. This is going to be a pivotal verse, foundational and essential verse for the life you've always wanted. You need to commit this verse into your memory, and every single day you need to check your life based upon this verse. As we said, it's the Martin Luther King Jr.'s Day weekend, all right? And he was a man of God on mission. He had a dream. There's so many good things that he did. But before there was MLK Jr., there was Gandhi. And before Gandhi, there was Jesus, okay? Everything good that Martin Luther King Jr. ever did, his entire life on mission for nonviolence and peace and unity and reconciliation and justice, all of that comes from the life and the message of Jesus. I cannot emphasize enough how central Jesus is to everything good in life. Like women's rights, equality, like justice, all the, eradication of racism. Everything begins with Jesus. Everything that we're doing that is remotely good, it all comes from Jesus. But sadly, in this post-Christian era, it's no longer postmodern, it's post-Christian. And many people in our society, they are very violent against Christianity. They think Christianity is a straitjacket that you need to just get rid of because Christianity has been something primitive that we held on to, and we need to pursue more peace and freedom, and everything will come if we get rid of Jesus. Like in the tech world, right? They speak of utopia that will be created on human terms, on humanology, right? If we get rid of Jesus, all that religious jargon and all that, all that guilt-tripping stuff, we will finally be free and we can pursue world peace and it will be a better world, right? That's the ideology of our day, and nothing can be more wrong than to get rid of Jesus. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. But before there was Martin Luther King Jr., before there was Gandhi, there was Jesus, and he said stuff like, turn the other cheek. Love your enemy. Those who live by the sword will die by the sword. Now, while Jesus made these statements, we know for sure that Jesus wasn't a pacifist. Okay, he wasn't a weakling, passive pacifist. He was a warrior. He was the Lion of Judah that the Old Testament prophets talked about. He fought the good fight of faith, but the way he fought and defeated the enemy was different. And to Jesus, the enemy wasn't the Roman Empire. It wasn't the Pharisees in the right wing or the Sadducees on the other side of the extreme. The enemy was not the empire, Pharisees, political preference groups. Okay? To Jesus, the enemy was the flesh and the devil. And we're going to do a deep exegesis on this today because this is going to be so enlightening to where we need to put all of our energy into. The way Jesus defeated evil, the flesh, the devil, the world, the way he overcame the world wasn't with a sword or a spear, but it was the cross. And I want you to remember that, okay? He overcame this world. He defeated the enemy, not through swords and spears, but the cross. Now, we go back to Matthew 16, okay? Now, we have Jesus explaining some things to his disciples. From that time on, Jesus began to explain to his disciples. Now, he was in this battle against the flesh, the devil, and this world, and he's explaining to his disciples how the victory will come. He's explaining to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem, suffer many things at the hands of the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and on the third day be raised to life. Like, imagine for a second, like, the disciples, okay, Jesus has something to say. He's got the master plan of how to break the enemy. Oh, it's going to be amazing. Okay, what? And Jesus comes. I'm going to die. Can you imagine what the disciples are thinking? What? Excuse me, Jesus? What did you just say, right? It just did not register. So, when the disciples were hearing this and they couldn't believe what he was saying, who was the ringleader for the disciples? It was Peter. Okay, so Peter took him aside. Peter's like, Jesus, I need to speak to you alone right now. Right? Like, imagine you're a disciple to this rabbi and you're like, Rabbi, come. Look, come. I need to talk to you right now. Peter takes Jesus aside and began to what? Rebuke him. Oh my goodness. The nerve that Peter had, right? Peter was like this what is it? What kind of personality type is this? Not phlegmatic. Yeah. He was like up to here and he said, "Never, Lord." He said, "This shall never happen to you." And guess what Jesus did? He takes the disciple that took him, that said never, to the cross, and Jesus looks squarely to Peter and says, "Get behind me, Satan." By the way, to clarify, Satan is not a nickname, it's not a pet name, it's not a term of endearment, right? Satan probably ranks at the top of the list of what you wouldn't not want Jesus to call you. Okay. But to the very disciple that is saying no to the way of the cross, Jesus is saying, "Get behind me, Satan." In the strongest language possible in Korean. 여기 한국 분들 좀 죄송합니다. 꺼져. 사단아. Strong language. But here we see a penetrating insight into the human condition. The only time Satan can get to us and mess with us is when we refuse the way of the cross. If you forget everything else today, I want you to remember this. The only way that Satan can have his way with you, the only way he can keep you on that Instagram scrolling for 4 hours, listening to music and watching Netflix and eating this ice cream and just continually like indulging and gratifying the lust of your heart. If he can keep you, the only way he can keep you there with Snapchat and endless like Daily Mail news that you're just kind of clicking, right? The only way he can keep you there is what? Is when you refuse the way of the cross. When you say, nope, the cross is not for me, Satan says, you're mine. Jesus goes on. He says, get thee behind me, Satan. You're a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the concerns of God. Jesus is saying to Peter, your value system is all off. Then Jesus said to his disciples, whoever wants to be my disciple must, emphatic statement, must deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. By now, you're like, Pastor, I wasn't expecting a message like this today. Can you just get through the good parts? I'm not going to skip to the good parts today. This is where we're going to kind of linger and remain, okay? The cross, okay, over the years has become a lot of different things. An architectural feature in a building, a sentimental song, a piece of jewelry. And I don't know if you guys see this right now, but I see the grand return of the cross-shaped earrings. Like I remember first seeing that back in the mid-90s, and this was one of my teachers in public school. She one day came up with the biggest cross earrings. I was like, but like this is a circuit back to the mid-90s and even the 70s. The cross-shaped earrings, now it's making a comeback, okay? Every 20 years, something makes a comeback. The jeans that you wore in the 90s, it's going to come back soon. I don't know if you really believe that, right? But the cross has become so many different things over the years. But I want to remind you this morning that the cross is a symbol of death. The call that we all receive as disciples of Jesus Christ is a call to die. Now here in America and Atlanta, this sounds pretty absurd and crazy. Even though Atlanta is within the Bible Belt, the concept of dying to self is not too appealing to its residents, right? Instead, daily, Atlanta and the cities in the United States continue to serve as a temple to hedonism. The cultural message that we receive on a daily basis is not self-denial, but self-fulfillment. Just about every message out there, all the advertising, all the commercials, all of the things that you see online and internet and your phones every day is a message about self-fulfillment. And this is a documentary I want you to check out if you have some time, okay? In the BBC, back in about mid-2000s, they produced a documentary that's entitled Century of the Self. It describes the history of the rise of self, especially in the realm of consumerism and advertising. It's very fascinating. I think it's still on Netflix or on YouTube, and it's free. You can watch it. Just take a look at how much self has risen to dominate culture. Okay? Every message that we receive nowadays, right, is to fulfill yourself. The closest thing that we have to self-denial in our culture is health and fitness, right? But no matter how much you're saying no to sugar, chocolate, or carbs, it's still a mechanism for self-fulfillment. I have a friend who is on a sugar fast, okay? And every day she's posting on Instagram of how much sugar she's fasting, which is none, right? But I mean, if you are abstaining and refraining from certain things, it's to an end goal of self-fulfillment. You want to lose that weight. You want other people to look at you, right? It's something that is made for self-fulfillment. For us in the 21st century, we can't fathom or possibly imagine a good life when we're not getting what we want. Over the last few years, there's been a lot of conversation around sexuality And it's been a hot issue in both religious and political circles. Okay? And every time there's a debate on sexuality, okay, every time there's a debate, these assumptions are made in the debate. And I want you to see if you agree with this, okay? The assumptions that are made is nobody and nothing should get in the way of me getting what I want. The second one, if anyone or anything does, it's oppression. And the third assumption, if I can't get what I want, I can't be happy. This doesn't just apply to sexuality, it applies to our entire lives. Okay? We almost live and breathe these assumptions. And the society that we are coexisting with also buys into these assumptions. Because somehow over time, we have been led to believe that the self is sacred. God used to be sacred. Now, in the post-Christian culture, self is sacred. Self is the goat. Okay? And nowadays, it does not make sense at all to deny self. And I talked to you guys about this, okay? Slogans abound. Be true to yourself. Follow your heart. Don't let anybody tell you what to do. This is the orthodoxy of the current culture. Denying yourself is heresy. Like, why would you? But Jesus specifically to his disciples and apprentices, he says, the only way you're going to save yourself and therefore experience true fulfillment is if you deny yourself. And I want to talk about that. What does Jesus mean? Deny yourself, not yourself. The denial that Jesus talks about is not about denying chocolate, sugar, or carbs, or even a good night's sleep. The self that Jesus is speaking of is what the Bible calls flesh, the flesh. And the flesh is the center, the epicenter of where it constantly sends the message to gratify and indulge in your lusts and desires. And for the record, the society, the world that we live in, has only one category for desire. And it's the primitive drive to fulfill and gratify self. Yeah, I want you to remember that, okay? This world right now has only one category. But the Bible shows us there's two categories. One is flesh, which the world is talking about, bent towards self-gratification, and it leads to self-destruction. But there's another self, another category of self in the Bible, which is the spirit. And it is bent toward God and others, and it leads to abundant life. And when Jesus is saying, deny yourself, he's talking about this first category that the world is tempting you to pursue on a daily basis. And this call to deny the first category of self is central to following Jesus. It is the core and the very essence of discipleship. If we don't get this right, we won't get far with Jesus. And I want to stay here for a second. You can commit all you want. You listen to a great message, you come to a church, you were in a prayer group, you read something, and you're in a retreat, and some speaker, and there's good music, and you're like, oh man, I want to follow Jesus. Okay? You can commit all you want and say you want to follow Jesus, but if you don't deny yourself, you can't follow Jesus. As long as self is king and is enthroned in your heart to be supreme, you can't ever follow Jesus. Is that clear? If you, being on that vacation, drinking that, was it latte or cocktail, if that is the most important thing to you, to be in Bahamas, I don't know, Cancun, if the most important thing in your life is for you to gratify yourself, no matter how much you say, oh, I love you, Jesus, I want to follow you. You can sing, oh, how he loves us. You can do that millions of times. But if you don't deny yourself, you're not going to follow Jesus. Is this sinking in? Today, I'm bringing a very heavy subject. I want to remain here, okay, because this is so very important. So all of you by now, it's like, oh, man, I hear you, Pastor, but, it's super hard. How do you deny yourself? And why would I even want to deny myself? There's so many, life is short. YOLO, right? You just live once and you want to live it up and you want to just drink what you want. You want to do everything you want, right? Why would I deny myself? What would be the benefit to denying myself? And if this is your question, you're in for a treat, because Jesus, the master teacher, anticipates your question and says this. He says, for the reason that you need to deny yourself is because whoever wants to save their life will lose it. It's not maybe you'll lose it, or perhaps you might lose it. It's will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me, again, what's the word? Will find it. He goes on, what good will it be for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? For the Son of Man is going to come in his Father's glory with his angels, and then he will reward each person according to what they have done. And what they have done is whether you've denied yourself or fulfilled yourself. If you have fulfilled yourself here in this world with everything that you ever wanted to do, what's going to happen? But it's not even later, and I'm going to point that out. With Jesus, this is very interesting, because whenever Jesus is teaching, he doesn't end with a claim or even a command. Every time Jesus ends his teaching session, he ends with a statement about reality, about how life actually works. And here are some samples, okay? Jesus said, it is better to give than to receive. Jesus also said, the first will be last, and the last will be first. Now, take a look at this, okay? Are these commands? No. Are those out-tos? No. Okay, and he also says, no one can serve two masters. Is that a command? No. It's simply a statement about reality. So many of Jesus' teaching and his statements are not commands. It's not guilt trips. It's not you should do this or you ought to do this. He just makes a simple statement. It's better to give than receive. Because to Jesus, there's only two options. The first option, you deny Jesus and you follow yourself and you lose your life. The second option is you deny yourself and follow Jesus and save your life. These are the two options that Jesus is giving. And I want to break this down, okay? I know it's a little small, but this is what happens, okay? And option one, when you deny Jesus and follow self, No matter how much money you accumulate, no matter how many vacations you go on, no matter how much you consume, I mean, the best kind of food out there in the most amazing restaurants, you still remain unsatisfied, disintegrated, you're run and owned by your desire, and you're constantly in slavery to want. And then you eventually lose your life. This is option one. Okay? Option two is you deny yourself and you follow Jesus. And temporarily, many people you think you're crazy, and you are wondering what is this going to do. But once you begin to deny yourself, you become satisfied. Your life is integrated. You're no longer run by desire, but motivated by love, and you're free from the domination of want. And eventually, you save your life. I want you to know this, okay? You and I, all of us, okay, we were created by God for God. That's the haunting truth, okay? You might believe otherwise. You might believe, other theories. But if it is indeed true that we were created by God and for God, who knows the best about life? God. Because He created it. Right? And the way life works is if you deny yourself, you find more of it. But if you fulfill yourself and indulge yourself, you lose more of it. That's the simple reality about life. For those of you who are in middle school and high school, this is really hard for you to understand. Because when I was in high school, I couldn't understand it either. What? But the more you live life, the more you grow older, the more you begin to understand how life really works, you realize the truth of what Jesus said. The human condition is this, okay? The human condition. As long as your method of trying to satisfy yourself is by trying to get more of what you want, you'll always be dissatisfied. And the more you get what you want, the more you want more. We all experience this, right? The moment you get that shiny new thing you want, you're happy for like 28 seconds, right? Right now, just observing Enoch, right? First he got Polly, Bucky, that whole like character. Oh yeah! That lasts for maybe 40 seconds. And he wants Wildcrats. And then that dies down. Lego, Tylo is like the new thing. There is this continual want for more. The toys, the gadgets, you got your iPhone 4. It's not going to satisfy you. Was there a 4? I remember having the first iPhone. Oh, I'm set for life. Maybe for 24 months, right? The more you get what you want, the more you want more. This is the human condition, and this is the oldest trick that Satan uses. He gets you to say, hey, the church is telling you to not drink Corona and not drink Bud Light, okay? But you know what? Just do it. You want it. And the more you tap into this temptation of wanting some type of relief and euphoria and good times, and you know how the commercials are during Super Bowl with beer commercials. You think you're going to get that, and you think you're going to experience it. You'll finally be satisfied and happy and euphoric, enjoying life with your friends, eating pizza and beer. But what happens? You become dissatisfied again. All this trick by Satan. If you smoke this, and if you eat this, and if you do this, then you will finally be set. Your life will be good if you do this. Okay? If you take these classes at Lifetime, and if you follow through and get a fit body and you're like stronger, you will never be decided. Like sculpted six-pack is gonna like satisfy you for your entire life. I've seen a lot of guys with like really amazing six-pack that were severely depressed because they were constantly trying to maintain those six-packs, and they were really just not happy. The human condition. See, when you deny yourself and you don't need more of what you want to be happy, all that is good in your life becomes a gift. Amen. You're not entitled to any good things. There's nothing that you should have. Everything that's good, your family, your health, your six-packs, and your ability to drink clean, fresh water, right? Everything in your life, it's a gift. You begin to be grateful. You become satisfied. You become integrated as a soul, and you begin to be generous, and that whole system. The whole system of how that happens, the transformation from a disgruntled, dissatisfied, like sinner to a generous, life-giving, at peace, integrated saint. That transition, that all happens with denying yourself. Are you guys getting this? Right? It begins with denial, self-denial. The life that you've always wanted begins, and this is ironic and paradoxical, the life you've always wanted to enjoy begins with self-denial. I'm going to tell you a little story. Oftentimes, and Pastor Alex does this too, the productive time that I have in certain days, okay, and it's not every day, is when I sit at a corner at a Starbucks and really just put on like worship songs and begin to just work, okay? And one of these days, when I was in Johns Creek, one of the Starbucks there, and oftentimes at this particular Starbucks, at a certain time of the day, there are some college students that come in and they begin to just talk really loud. Okay? You're not trying to eavesdrop, but you can't help but listen to these conversations. Sometimes like high school girls that just like finished their soccer practice come and talk about like Aaron, not the Aaron that we know, but Aaron, whoever that Aaron is, and I'm just like, all right, just stop talking about Aaron and go, like that's the routine. But one of these days, I was at that Starbucks, I was working, and there's these two college girls that came in, and they began to talk about the study that they were doing at their school, and it's one of like political science, and they talked about different things, all different kind of political realities. And I will never forget this moment because at one point, one of the girls, she basically almost screamed out, "Democracy is dying!" Like, with all the bad things that's happening, and she has a $6 an iced caramel macchiato in her hand. It's a beautiful day outside. She's in Johns Creek, and she's like, "Democracy is dying," sipping on that latte. Kind of ironic. But that got me thinking, like, democracy is dying. But if you look at all the news of our day and everything that's happening in our world, everything is just spinning out of control. Consumerism is at its all-time high. People are more dissatisfied and just so angry and anxious than ever, right? And there's so many different drama, political drama and business drama and all these things that are happening. And Facebook is listening to your conversation and popping ads to you that you don't even want. And you're just like, what in the world is happening to our world? But here's what I want to say. Societal breakdown is what happens when the society is all about self. When desire is your king, you experience anarchy. We disintegrate as a society when we put our want, our desire as our king. What I want, right? Every time, for those of you who are children and your parents here, every time it's about you and you start screaming, but I have to go. Everybody's going to be there. If I don't have that. Every time it's about you, you're contributing to the disintegration of society. Same thing with parents. Same for all of us. As long as we're self-absorbed, self-occupied, and it's all about me, myself, and I, we will disintegrate as a society. On the flip side, when we deny ourselves and no longer is desire our king, but Jesus is our king, we become reintegrated, and the integrated soul creates harmony not only with yourself, but with your family and with society, and people begin to be unselfish. The conflicts begin to disintegrate, and there's harmony and peace that prevails. The solution and the answer to all of the chaos begins, again, with denying ourselves. You know, what's popular right now, is Christians changing Jesus into a social justice warrior, which is important, okay? Because Jesus is literally the prophetic lineage of, the Messiah that is going to make everything right. But if we look at Jesus and his life, he does not resemble a political activist. Right? If you look closely, Jesus' attitude toward Roman Empire is what? It's complete indifference. He says, give Caesar to what is Caesar. He doesn't even engage the empire, the politicians, and the politics of our day. Instead of tackling policies and politics, Jesus focuses and zeroes in on the human heart. He focuses on the disintegration of the human soul. And I found a quote by Dallas Willard, okay? And I want to read this and wrap our time together, okay? To live in the flesh, to live with uncrucified affections and desires, is simply a matter of putting them in the ultimate position in our lives. Whatever we want becomes the most important thing. This is what happens when we are living apart from God. We make our desires ultimate because they are all we have. We look to them as if they were everything in our lives, thinking of my worth, my glory, my appearance, thinking about my power to sustain myself. What does this mean? If self is on the throne, and if you're not denying yourself, what is running your life is your desire, and that desire is going to kill you. I hope this was very clear, okay? Because we often talk about the cost of discipleship, but I want to talk about the cost of non-discipleship. If the cost of discipleship is the cross and the death to self, what is the cost of non-discipleship? The cost is eternal death and chaos and anxious souls that are trying to find peace. We see so many people forfeit their soul for a quick drink, quick smoke, quick escapade on Tinder, right? And you got to ask yourself, is your soul that cheap? Are those things worth selling your soul over? Jesus says, no. Your soul is priceless. And Jesus paid for your soul so that you no longer will be dominated by your desire. And Jesus says that the cross is the entry point to saving your soul. As ironic as it may sound, the first step to the life you've always wanted is to deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow Jesus. And as long as Jesus is an add-on to spice up your pretty good Atlanta life, you'll never get anywhere with Jesus. Let's go ahead and read this again. Okay? All together. 시작. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me. And here's the practice. One thing that I want you to do every day to practice self-denial. And it's nothing big, but it's going to really change how you think about things. One of the first things I want you to do when you get up in the morning is not to check your phone or your email or rush to do something else. I want you, when you get up, to close your eyes and visualize Jesus on the cross. Every day. And when you do that, you begin the day with a mental picture of Jesus denying himself for your soul. And I want you to follow suit to what Jesus had done. And whenever you're tempted to indulge and make life about you, I want you to stop, deny yourself, and begin to give life to those around you. Let's have our closing hymn, People Come. And this closing hymn is a confession and a dedication where you're saying, just as I am, Lord Jesus, I've tried to live for me and my desires. I try to gratify everything that I've ever wanted, but it's not working. It hasn't worked, and it's not going to work. So what I'm going to do right now, just as I am, I'm going to come to you and give you all that I am. Okay? Let's go ahead and sing our closing hymn together, and we'll wrap up with prayer. There are some of you that are here that have listened to the message and have sang this hymn. And you now realize the futility of living for yourself, and you really want to make a dedication of denying yourself daily. Okay? If that's your sole desire, okay, that sort of desire, please kneel where you are right now. Kneel. If that's not your desire, you can remain standing. Okay? But if it's your desire to deny yourself every day and really follow Jesus and be led to the life that He has for you, please kneel with me to pray this prayer, okay? Heavenly Father God, Lord, sometimes even at church, kneeling in front of your presence is very uncomfortable. We're so used to comfort. We're so used to indulging in whatever we want. And we're so used to stress, busyness, anxiety, and chaotic work schedule, and constant family friction. And some of us never connected the dots between why is my life so just exhausting? Help us to realize that if we continue to hold on to ourself, we will always be tired, restless, and anxious. Help us to realize the futility of living for myself. And help us to realize the abundant life that awaits when we deny ourselves and begin to follow you with our cross. Help us to never say never to the way of the cross like Peter did. But help us to say yes to the best life that you've dreamed for us when you said, deny yourself and follow me. Lord, throughout this week, we want to make this very practical. Whenever self arises to be the king and we want to follow our desires instead of following you, help us to remember this message and to put everything before you and say, Jesus, please help me deny myself. Help me see past this. Help me to realize what I'm signing up for when I deny myself. May this be very real in our daily lives. And for all of us here that are still here, every time that we're tempted beyond our measure, and we just want to do what we want, help us to kneel just like now. Just quietly kneel before you and whisper, Jesus, help me die. And through that experience, through that everyday spirituality exercises, may we grow and mature as your disciples. Thank you so much for this Sabbath. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.